ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every life when a person must decide whether they will live by the light of their own conviction or by the shadows of somebody else's opinion. There comes a day when you look in the mirror and you realize that the greatest battle you will ever fight is not against the world outside you, but against the doubt that tries to live inside you. And when that day comes, you do not need a louder crowd. You do not need a bigger stage. You do not need 1,000 voices telling you who you are. You need one honest voice, steady and unshaken, rising up from within and saying, I see my ability, not maybe, not someday, not when everybody agrees, right now. I see my ability. That is where strength begins. That is where dignity begins. That is where a human being stops wandering in circles and starts walking with direction. Because the truth is, so many people spend their whole lives begging for permission to be themselves. They wait for approval before they act. They wait for applause before they believe. They wait for somebody else to open the door when they were born with the power to turn the handle themselves. And that waiting, my friends, is expensive. It costs time. It costs peace. It costs confidence. It costs destiny. A person who constantly needs validation becomes a prisoner in a room with no bars, no chains, and no walls, only expectations. They live by reactions. They measure their worth by comments, by likes, by compliments, by the mood of other people. One day they feel high because somebody praised them, and the next day they feel low because somebody ignored them. That is not freedom. That is emotional dependence. And no life can become great while it is begging others to define it. So tonight I want to speak to the part of you that is tired of living small. I want to speak to the part of you that knows there is more in you than you have used. I want to speak to the part of you that has been silent for too long, waiting for the right moment, the right person, the right affirmation, the right sign. I want to remind you that the right moment begins when you decide to become responsible for your own growth. Because ability is not always loud. Ability is often quiet at first. It does not always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes ability shows up as a whisper. Sometimes it looks like one more effort when nobody is watching. Sometimes it looks like getting up early when it would be easier to stay down. Sometimes it looks like saying no to distractions. Sometimes it looks like walking away from people who benefit from your insecurity. Sometimes it looks like doing the ordinary things with extraordinary consistency. People often think confidence is the absence of fear. It is not. Confidence is the decision to move forward even when fear is present. Confidence is not arrogance. Confidence is not pretending to be superior. Confidence is internal stability. Confidence is saying, I know who I am, I know what I stand for, and I know what I must do. That kind of confidence does not need to shout. It does not need to prove itself every second. It stands. It breathes. It works. It endures. And let me tell you something powerful. When you learn to respect yourself, the whole architecture of your life begins to change. Self-respect is the foundation. Without it, discipline feels like punishment. Without it, purpose feels like pressure. Without it, success feels hollow. But with self-respect, discipline becomes a promise you keep to yourself. With self-respect, purpose becomes a path you are honored to walk. With self-respect, success is no longer a costume you wear for others. It becomes the natural result of who you have chosen to become. There are people who say they want more, but they keep living as though their current habits are harmless. They say they want growth, but they keep entertaining the same excuses. They say they want peace, but they keep feeding chaos. They say they want excellence, but they keep negotiating with laziness. And every time they fail to keep a promise to themselves, they weaken the most important relationship in their life, the relationship they have with their own word. Your word matters. When you say you will do something and you do it, your spirit becomes stronger. When you say you will wake up early and you do it, your mind begins to trust you. When you say you will stop returning to what harms you, and you actually stop, your heart starts to heal. When you say you will pursue a better life, and you begin taking the necessary steps, your confidence rises, because confidence is not built in theory. It is built in action. Do not underestimate the power of small, repeated victories. A great life is rarely built in one dramatic moment. It is built in quiet repetitions. One disciplined morning, one honest conversation, one finished task, one resisted temptation, one page read, one walk taken, one apology made, one boundary kept, 1 hour invested in your future while others are wasting theirs. That is how a strong life is built, brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. And yet, many people are exhausted, not because they are working too hard, but because they are carrying things they were never meant to carry. They carry the opinions of family members who never believed in them. They carry the judgment of people who barely know them. They carry the memory of old mistakes like a chain around the ankle of their present. They carry the fear of being misunderstood. They carry the burden of trying to please everybody. But listen to me carefully. The approval of everybody is not a goal. It is a trap. You were not born to be understandable to everyone. You were born to be truthful. You were not born to be agreed with by the whole world. You were born to be faithful to the calling in your own life. There will always be people who misunderstand your growth because they are still committed to your old version. There will always be people who feel uncomfortable when you begin to rise because your growth exposes their stagnation. That is not your sign to shrink. that is your sign to stay steady. A tree does not apologize for growing taller. It does not ask the grass for permission. It stretches toward the light because that is what it was made to do. You must become the same way. You must stop asking the world whether you are allowed to become who you were created to be. You must rise because your nature demands it. You must grow because your purpose requires it. You must strengthen yourself because your future depends on it. There is a difference between confidence and comparison. Comparison is the thief that walks into the house of your mind and steals the joy from your own life. It tells you to stare at somebody else's journey and forget your own. It tells you to measure your beginning against someone else's middle. It tells you to look at somebody else's harvest while neglecting your own seed. And if you keep comparing, you will always find a reason to feel behind. But your life is not a race against someone else. Your life is a responsibility. Your life is a stewardship. Your life is an assignment. You do not need to be them. You need to become the best version of you. The same sun that shines on another person's field is shining on yours. The question is not whether light exists. The question is whether you will cultivate what has been given to you. And make no mistake, ability grows through use. A gift that is never exercised becomes fragile. A muscle that is never trained becomes weak. A mind that is never challenged becomes dull. A heart that is never tested becomes timid. A life that is never stretched becomes limited by comfort. So if you want to know the strength of your ability, do not merely admire it. Use it. Try, build, practice, persist, fail, and continue. Learn and continue. Improve and continue. Some of the people who admire greatness from a distance secretly fear the work required to become great. They love the idea of success, but dislike the discipline behind it. They want the result without the sacrifice. They want the crown without the climb. But every meaningful life requires a climb. Every noble outcome requires endurance. Every worthy dream requires labor. There is no shortcut that can replace character. There is no hack that can substitute discipline. There is no magic formula that can take the place of consistency. And discipline, let me tell you, is one of the purest forms of self-respect. When you become disciplined, you are telling yourself, my future matters. When you choose to act wisely today, you are saying, I am not willing to betray my own tomorrow for the comfort of this moment. Discipline is not just about restrictions. Discipline is freedom in a stronger form. It frees you from chaos. It frees you from regret. It frees you from being driven by every impulse and every emotion. Discipline gives your life shape. It gives your soul structure. It gives your gifts direction. Without discipline, talent leaks. Without discipline, ambition scatters. Without discipline, passion burns out. But with discipline, Even ordinary effort becomes extraordinary over time. With discipline, the quiet person becomes formidable. With discipline, the uncertain person becomes steady. With discipline, the overlooked person becomes undeniable. Do not wait for motivation to save you. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the furnace. A spark can begin a fire, but only a furnace can sustain it. You need more than a moment of excitement. You need a way of living. You need habits that hold you when your emotions fluctuate. You need commitments that stay in place when your feelings are unreliable. You need a system of action that does not depend on applause. That is what emotionally independent people understand. They do not require the whole world to be in a good mood before they can pursue their mission. They do not collapse because one person was rude. They do not lose direction because one relationship ended. They do not stop growing because one opportunity passed. They feel deeply, yes. They care sincerely, yes. But they are not controlled by the opinions, moods, or approvals of others. Emotional independence is not coldness. It is strength with tenderness. It is the ability to care without clinging. It is the capacity to love without surrendering your identity. It is knowing that your peace is not for sale. It is knowing that your values are not negotiable. It is knowing that your self-worth cannot be handed to you by a stranger and cannot be taken away by a critic. A person with emotional independence can hear praise without becoming dependent on it. They can hear criticism without being crushed by it. They can be alone without feeling abandoned. They can be misunderstood without losing their center. They can walk away from toxic spaces because their inner life is stronger than their need to be accepted. And there is great power in that. Great power. Because once you are no longer desperate for validation, something remarkable happens. Your energy returns to you. Your focus clears, your boundaries sharpen, your choices improve. Your life becomes more honest. You stop performing for rooms you should have never entered in the first place. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop leaking your strength into the hands of people who only know how to waste it. Let me speak plainly. A lot of people are not tired because they are doing too much. They are tired because they are trying to be too many things to too many people. They are exhausted from wearing masks. They are exhausted from pretending. They are exhausted from shrinking in one place and inflating in another. But the soul was never designed to live divided like that. The soul thrives in truth. It thrives in integrity. It thrives when your private life and public life begin to agree. That is why growth begins with honesty. Be honest about your habits. Be honest about your fears. Be honest about your procrastination. Be honest about the places where you have been self-sabotaging. Be honest about the people who bring out the worst in you. Be honest about the dreams you have delayed. because what you refuse to face, you cannot change. What you excuse, you will repeat. What you romanticize, you will remain trapped by. A wise person does not insult their weakness. They inspect it. They do not celebrate confusion. They clarify it. They do not worship comfort. They outgrow it. Maybe you have been through disappointment. Maybe you have been overlooked. Maybe you have been counted out. Maybe someone said you would never change. Maybe someone said you would never amount to much. Maybe you absorbed those words longer than you realized. But hear this. A label spoken in your direction is not a life sentence unless you keep repeating it to yourself. You are not what happened to you. You are not the worst thing you have done. You are not the fear that once seized your heart. You are not the rejection that bruised your confidence. You are not the opinion of the last person who doubted you. You are more. You are more than the mistake, more than the memory, more than the setback, more than the embarrassment, more than the failure, more than the delay. And because you are more, you must demand more from yourself. Not perfection, not a fake version of greatness, not an impossible standard that turns growth into torment. No. Demand honesty, demand effort, demand consistency, demand courage, demand the willingness to rise again, demand the humility to learn, demand the resilience to continue. The world does not need another person pretending to be strong. The world needs people who have become strong in the quiet places of their own lives. The world needs people whose confidence is built on substance, not show. The world needs people who are useful, grounded, disciplined, and kind. The world needs people who know how to stand firm without becoming harsh, who know how to be ambitious without becoming arrogant, who know how to be successful without becoming hollow. And that kind of person is not born by accident. That kind of person is formed in the early mornings when no one is watching, formed in the evenings when temptation is loud, formed in the decisions that no one applauds, formed in the lonely seasons when growth feels invisible, formed when you choose to keep your standards high, even when no one would blame you for lowering them, formed when you refuse to betray your values for convenience. There is a beautiful strength in being rooted. A rooted person is not easily shaken. A rooted person is not blown around by every trend. A rooted person does not need the crowd to tell them what matters. A rooted person knows how to weather silence, criticism, delay, and uncertainty. They are not unstable because their life is not built on praise. It is built on purpose. Purpose is the compass that keeps your life from drifting. Purpose tells you what deserves your time. Purpose tells you what must be resisted. Purpose tells you when to stay and when to go. Purpose gives pain a meaning and effort a direction. A life without purpose is like a ship without a map. It may move, but it does not arrive anywhere worthwhile. That is why so many people feel restless even when they are busy. Motion is not the same as meaning. Activity is not the same as purpose. You can fill every hour and still feel empty if you are not connected to something deeper than convenience. You can collect achievements and still feel lost if your soul has no direction. But when purpose enters the picture, everything changes. Even hard work becomes sacred. Even sacrifice becomes easier to bear. Even delay becomes bearable because you know why you are waiting. So ask yourself, what am I building? What am I becoming? What life am I preparing for? What kind of person do I need to be in order to honor my future? These are not small questions. These are life-shaping questions. And the answers are rarely found in noise. They are found in stillness. They are found in reflection. They are found in honest self-examination. They are found when a person stops hiding from themselves and begins to listen to the deeper voice within. The voice that says, you are capable. The voice that says, do the work. The voice that says, stop handing your power to other people. The voice that says, you know what to do. The voice that says, rise. Yes, rise. Rise above the habit of doubting yourself every time something feels difficult. Rise above the need to be endlessly reassured. Rise above the pattern of asking everyone else what your life should look like. Rise above the urge to settle for what is easy. Rise above the temptation to abandon your calling because your progress is slower than you hoped. Some of you are one decision away from a different identity. One decision to stop entertaining self-disrespect. One decision to stop speaking against yourself. One decision to stop waiting for people who are never coming. One decision to start the habits that honor your future. One decision to take your own life seriously. Because self-respect changes your posture. It changes your language. It changes your boundaries. It changes the choices you make when no one else is around. A person who respects themselves does not beg to be seen. They become visible through their conduct. A person who respects themselves does not chase every open door. They learn which doors align with their destiny. A person who respects themselves does not keep recycling the pain of the past. They learn to release what has already expired. Let go of what has ended. Let go of the conversations that keep replaying in your head. Let go of the labels that no longer belong to you. Let go of the need to win over people who are invested in staying wrong about you. Let go of the fantasy that validation will finally make you whole. Validation may comfort you for a moment, but it cannot complete you. Compliments may lift you temporarily, but they cannot carry your life. Praise may feel good, but it cannot become your foundation. If your peace depends on applause, then your peace will always be vulnerable. If your identity depends on approval, then your identity will always be unstable. Build deeper than that. Build your life on values. build it on character. Build it on discipline. Build it on truth. Build it on service. Build it on daily progress. Build it on a reason that reaches beyond ego. Build it on a vision that is bigger than your feelings and stronger than your fears. There is a moment in every person's life when excuses start to sound small. There is a moment when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of changing. There is a moment when you realize that comfort has not been helping you, it has been limiting you. And when that moment comes, everything depends on what you do next. Will you continue to talk about what you could become, or will you begin to become it? Will you continue to admire discipline, or will you practice it? Will you continue to ask for confidence, or will you earn it through action? Will you continue to hope for a better life, or will you build one? The answer is not in the question. The answer is in your routine. The answer is in your decisions. The answer is in your willingness to stand up when you do not feel ready. A great life is not created by people who feel ready all the time. It is created by people who move forward anyway. It is created by people who understand that confidence often follows action. It is created by people who refuse to let fear have the final word. And fear, by the way, is a powerful liar. Fear says, you are not enough. Truth says you are growing. Fear says you will fail. Truth says you will learn. Fear says stay hidden. Truth says step forward. Fear says wait until you are perfect. Truth says start now. Fear says you need permission. Truth says you already have the ability. That is the battle. That is always the battle. Not between you and the world, but between fear and truth inside your own mind. And the more you feed truth, the less room fear has to rule. The more you practice courage, the less intimidating the future becomes. The more you act with integrity, the more natural self-respect becomes. The more you trust your own growth, the less dependent you become on the approval of others. I see my ability. Say it again. I see my ability. Not because everything is easy, but because everything valuable begins with belief. Not because the road is simple, but because the road is worth walking. Not because no one has ever doubted you, but because doubt is not the final authority. Not because you have already arrived, but because you are no longer willing to stay where you are. That is the kind of declaration that changes a life. It changes how you wake up. It changes how you speak. It changes how you work. It changes how you love. It changes how you recover from disappointment. It changes how you respond to rejection. It changes how you carry yourself in rooms where people once intimidated you. There is a dignity that comes when a person stops asking the world to complete them. They walk differently. They speak differently. They choose differently. They no longer beg for a seat at every table because they are building one of their own. They no longer perform for every audience because they know their worth is not a stage trick. They no longer need to be seen by everyone because they are finally seeing themselves clearly. And when you see yourself clearly, you stop living as a copy and begin living as a creation. That is freedom. The world does not need a duplicate of somebody else. It needs the authentic expression of your character, your gifts, your lessons, your voice, your strength, your service. It needs the thing only you can bring. But you cannot bring it fully while you are busy trying to be liked. You cannot bring it fully while you are afraid to stand alone. You cannot bring it fully while your energy is split between your purpose and your desire to be approved. So release the need to be everybody's favorite. Is the need to be constantly reassured. Is the need to explain your every move. Release the need to shrink so others can feel comfortable. Release the need to prove that you deserve to exist. You do not have to prove your right to grow. You do not have to prove your right to heal. You do not have to prove your right to shine. You do not have to prove your right to become. You only have to choose discipline over drift, choose purpose over emptiness, choose self-respect over self-betrayal, choose truth over performance, choose courage over comfort, choose growth over approval. And remember this, what you repeat becomes your life. Repeated excuses become habits. Repeated courage becomes character. Repeated discipline becomes destiny. Repeated honesty becomes trust. Repeated effort becomes achievement. Repeated self-respect becomes identity. So do not be casual with your days. Your days are building something. Do not be careless with your thoughts. Your thoughts are shaping something. Do not be reckless with your boundaries. Your boundaries are protecting something. Do not be indifferent toward your future. Your future is listening. You may not know everything yet. You may not have all the answers. You may still be healing. You may still be learning. You may still be rebuilding. But you are not empty. You are not powerless. You are not finished. And you are certainly not the sum of what has tried to break you. You are a person in progress. You are a work in motion. You are a soul capable of more than you have asked of yourself. You are alive. And as long as you are alive, growth is possible. That is why the call tonight is not to perfection. It is to participation. Participate in your own becoming. Participate in your own healing. Participate in your own discipline. Participate in your own future. Participate in your own purpose. Stop standing on the sidelines of your life as though you are merely a spectator. Get in the arena. Take the bruise. Take the lesson. Take the step. Take the responsibility. Take the challenge. Take the opportunity. Take the first move. Take back your power. You do not need to become someone else. You need to become more fully yourself. The self that honors truth. The self that keeps promises. The self that stands tall without arrogance. The self that can walk into uncertainty and still remain steady. The self that does not collapse without applause. The self that knows deep in the bones, I have ability and I will use it. That is the message. That is the turning point. That is the moment of awakening. So tonight, I want you to leave this place, not with a burst of excitement that fades by morning, but with a decision that changes the direction of your life. Decide that you will respect yourself enough to live with discipline. Decide that you will care about your future enough to stop wasting your present. Decide that you will no longer hand your identity over to the opinions of people who do not carry your burdens and do not pay your costs. Decide that you will trust the process of your growth even when it is slow. Decide that you will build a life that does not require constant approval to stand strong. And when doubt returns, and it will stand up and answer it. When fear returns, and it will stand up and answer it. When the old voices return, and they will stand up and answer them. When the world says, wait, stand up and answer with action. When the world says shrink, stand up and answer with courage. When the world says prove yourself, stand up and answer with your life. Because your life will be the proof. Your discipline will be the proof. Your peace will be the proof. Your growth will be the proof. Your boundaries will be the proof. Your courage will be the proof. Your consistency will be the proof. And one day, not long from now, you will look back at the person you used to be and realize that the greatest transformation was never in your circumstances alone. It was in your identity. It was in your standards. It was in your self-respect. It was in your willingness to stop waiting for permission and start living with purpose. So rise now. Rise with discipline. Rise with calm strength. Rise with emotional independence. Rise with self-respect. Rise with confidence. Rise with purpose. Rise with the quiet, unshakable power of a person who has finally learned to see their own ability. I see my ability. Say it until it becomes your posture. Say it until it becomes your habits. Say it until it becomes your future. Say it until it becomes the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you work, the way you love, the way you endure, the way you win. I see my ability. Now go and live like it. Go and work like it. Go and carry yourself like it. Go and build like it. Go and become the living proof that a person who respects themselves, trusts their purpose, and refuses to live for validation can change everything. The world has heard enough excuses. It is time for courage. It is time for discipline. It is time for growth. It is time for self-respect. It is time for purpose. It is time for you. Stand up. Lift your head. Take your place. And move forward with the full conviction that your best days are not behind you. They are being built by the choices you make now.